Chapter 10, the Bill of Rights notes. To James Madison, the creation of the Constitution seemed nothing less than a miracle. And by 1788, it seemed that it would take another miracle to get it adopted. In desperation, the Constitution supporters, the Federalists, looked to John Hancock, the governor of Massachusetts. In a dramatic speech, he urged the delegates to approve the Constitution as written. But he promised that the first task of the new Congress would be to amend the Constitution by adding a Bill of Rights. In the first presidential election held in 1789, George Washington became the first president, and John Adams became the vice president. While Congress debated over other issues, Madison sifted through nearly 100 proposed amendments. He chose ones that would seem a little less controversial, or at least least likely to cause a controversial or conflict. And he presented them to Congress on June 8th of 1789. By 1791, 9 of the 13 states had ratified 10 amendments that were drafted by James Madison and approved by Congress. Those 10 amendments are the Bill of Rights. The First Amendment rights. First Amendment protects the 5 basic freedoms: the right to worship freely, the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, and the rights to assemble and petition. The First Amendment has 2 guarantees of religious freedom. The first says that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. This means that Congress cannot make any faith the official religion of the United States, nor can it make laws that favor any religion over another one. As Thomas Jefferson explained in a letter to a friend, the amendment builds a wall of separation between church and state, which is still there. The second religious guarantee in the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law prohibiting the free exercise of religion. That means that people can hold any religious beliefs without fear of punishment. However, they cannot necessarily do whatever they want in the name of religious freedom. So, the First Amendment also protects the freedom of speech and the freedom of the press. The Supreme Court often treats these rights together as the right of free expression. Freedom of the press is important because of the vital roles that the press plays in a democratic society. Newspapers, magazines, and other media such as books and television act as a watchdog for the government. You see that a lot right now with between the election, the stuff for the election, and with coronavirus. Freedom of the press also brings responsibilities such as taking care not to spread false accusations or publish information that would be helpful to an enemy in a wartime. Freedom of speech brings responsibility as well. Although the First Amendment protects the right of people to speak freely in public places, like streets and parks, that right is not unlimited. The Supreme Court has allowed limits on some kinds of speech, such as speech that endangers public safety. For example, if you're in line, in a long line for something, and you scream fire, that would not be protected because that would in turn possibly put people's lives in danger as they were running away. The final 2 rights protected in the First Amendment are the right to peacefully assemble, meet together with others, and to petition or appeal to the government. The right to assembly means that citizens can use public property for meetings and demonstrations. Parades, protest marches, and political rallies are all forms of a peaceful assembly that is protected by the First Amendment. While the First Amendment protects peaceful meetings, it does not give people the right to close streets or buildings or to protest violently. Police can arrest a speaker who urges listeners to riot or break the law. Citizen protection. The Second, Third, and Fourth Amendments protect people against the abuse of power of the government. The Second Amendment is the right to bear arms. It protects an individual's right to own a gun for personal use, including self-defense inside their home. The Third Amendment, quartering troops in the homes. Before the American Revolution, Great Britain had forced colonists to house British soldiers. The Third Amendment gave Americans the right to refuse such requests. The Fourth Amendment, searches and seizures. The Fourth Amendment protects people and their belongings from unreasonable searches and seizures. A seizure is the act of forcibly taking control of somebody's, of a person or their property. Before arresting a person or searching someone's home, police must show a judge that there is a good reason for such an action. The judge then issues a warrant that says exactly who will be arrested or what will be searched, and they have to follow that. Legal rights and protections. The Fifth through the Eighth Amendments are intended to guarantee fair treatment for people involved in legal actions. The Fifth Amendment is legal rights. The Fifth Amendment is the longest amendment in the Bill of Rights. It lists 5 important rights of citizens involved with the justice system. First, this amendment gives people who are accused of serious crimes the right to a grand jury hearing. A grand jury is a group of citizens who hear the government's evidence and decide whether a trial is justified. If so, the grand jury issues an indictment or formal charge. If not, the accused person is released. Second, the amendment protects citizens from double jeopardy. Jeopardy means risk. So the protection ensures that a person who is tried for a crime and found not guilty cannot be tried again for that same crime. Now, that's not to say if they are charged with breaking and entering and stealing from a home, if they break in somewhere else and steal from somewhere else, they can be charged with that crime, but they cannot be charged in the original crime. Third, the amendment prohibits self-incrimination. It means that police cannot force people to say things that they can use against themselves in a trial. Police are required to remind people of their right to remain silent before they question them. They must also warn them that anything that they do say can and will be used against them in trial. This reminder is known as the Miranda warning or their Miranda rights. The protection against self-incrimination also applies to a defendant testifying in court. Defendants may refuse to answer questions that might cause damage to their case. They would actually say they were taking the Fifth, is what they would say. The Fifth Amendment also means a person cannot be deprived of life, liberty, and property without due process of law. The government must follow clear rules and act responsibly as it carries out the law. That's known as due process. The Fifth Amendment also says the government cannot take someone's private property for public use without just compensation. So it means that they have to be compensated for taking their property. The Sixth Amendment is criminal trial rights. The Sixth Amendment lists a number of rights that are designed to provide accused persons with fair trials, a right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury is part of that. The Seventh Amendment is the civil trial rights. The Eighth Amendment, bail and punishments. The Eighth Amendment protects an accused person's rights both before and after trial. Before a trial, it forbids a judge from demanding excessive bail. Other rights and powers, the Ninth and 10th Amendments concern the relationships among the federal government, the states, and the people. The Ninth Amendment protects rights that are not expressly listed in the Constitution, and the 10th Amendment says that powers that are neither given to the national government nor forbidden to the states belong to the states and the people.